When you think about the best martial artist in the MCU, you're bound to think of someone like Shang-Chi or Daredevil. Your mind definitely doesn't jump straight to Doctor Strange. Well, that's because in his solo movie, he had about as much fighting skill as I imagine real-life Benedict Cumberbatch probably would. Without his magical abilities or his artifacts, Caecilius and his thugs would have taken him down without a second thought. In the comics, however, Strange could leave all of his Harry Potter tricks and Indiana Jones trinkets at home and still take down the bad guys.
Fight! Fight like your life depended on it!
Wong makes sure that Steven is just as supreme a fighter as he is a sorcerer. He has proven several times over that his skills with just hand-to-hand combat rival those of someone like Wolverine. Just, don't tell Wolverine I said that. There's something that's always bothered me about Strange's big fight with Thanos. Strange was able to go toe-to-toe with the Mad Titan in his Infinity Gauntlet without using his Time Stone. This is kinda silly considering the fact that the Time Stone alone is arguably more powerful than all of the other stones combined. With the ability to stop time, you'd think he'd just be able to pause the Thanos fight, give Peter Quill a quick counseling session, and then return in time to take the gauntlet away from him. He'd basically look like the Flash from the perspective of anyone watching if he used the stone properly. My only guess is that Strange looked into all the futures where he used the stone frequently and realized that he would always destroy the universe, like that one episode of What If.
Punish me, not the world!
Maybe this was the one timeline in 14 million where he didn't consume every evil monster in the multiverse. Now, if you couldn't tell from the Ancient One's just flawless skin at, we can only presume, at least 1,000 years old, it pays to be the Sorcerer Supreme. She toyed with forbidden powers to gain her longevity, but Doctor Strange topped that. In the comics, he battles it out with Thanos' girlfriend, Death, and wins. Now, he no longer ages, nor will he perish from a natural disease. He can still be slain, but the natural passage of time has no hold over him. I bet he wishes he got that lifetime warranty before he started going gray at the temples. The first magical ability Steven comes across is astral projection after the Ancient One pushes his spirit out of his body. While we see the movie play around with this concept later,
Just a little while.
it doesn't go into all the applications this kind of power can have. Strange has the ability to take over the bodies of other people whenever he wants. We saw him absorb the powers of multiversal monsters in What If, but he can also summon divine or unholy beings into his body to borrow their powers. This came in handy during World War Hulk, when Hulk went on his greatest rampage ever. Strange was able to bring the demon Zom into his body to fight Hulk off. This kind of reckless behavior was awesome, but it temporarily lost him the title of Sorcerer Supreme. At the end of Doctor Strange, Steven masters traveling through alternate dimensions when he takes Dormammu down on his own turf.
Dormammu, I've come to bargain.
This is the least of what he's able to do with other dimensions. Perhaps his most versatile ability in this regard is the power to literally banish people to another dimension. He famously banished the Hulk to the Crossroads dimension to see if he could find happiness there. He tries that whole banishing the Hulk thing a couple of times, but it never really works out. Now, we might see a version of this in No Way Home. It looks like Peter royally screws up the entire multiverse, which will likely require Steven to intervene in the end. He may have to banish Peter and his friends to their own universe to save the world. Either way, there's a good chance that Strange will make it a lot harder for Pete to swing with the Avengers in the future. It's kinda strange that telepathy is a rarity in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. In the Marvel Comics universe, there are dozens of characters who can communicate with their minds. And those are just X-Men. Now, this is one of the more interesting abilities Strange possesses because it gives him a whole other level of combat to work with. In the comics, psychic battles can be just as intense as those earth-shattering Avengers punch fests. Perhaps telepathy is how Doctor Strange was able to organize that giant army to battle Thanos in just a few minutes after they were all snapped back to life. WandaVision changed the way magic is defined in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Doctor Strange, Wong, and the Ancient One use physical movements, magic artifacts, and their own minds to summon magical abilities. Agatha Harkness introduced us to witches who use incantations to produce complex spells.
I take power from the undeserving. It's kind of my thing.
In the comics, Strange has some pretty amazing incantations of his own. One of the most impressive was when he was battling it out with Dracula and his horde of vampires. He used something called the Montesi formula to obliterate all the fanged monsters of Earth simultaneously. Though this proved to be a temporary fix. Now this kind of power is going to come in real handy now that we know the Blade MCU project will be introducing vamps into the universe. Chances are that we'll see Dracula and his vampire nation that lives in the ruins of Chernobyl. Yeesh, you better start working on that Montesi incantation now, Strange. The biggest challenge when you're Sorcerer Supreme is just trying to get some shut-eye. You have legions of enemies who would love to attack your physical body or your mind while you're lying unconscious. That's why Doctor Strange has to do a little spell before bedtime to protect himself from any demons, monsters, sorcerers, witches, supervillains, or celestial entities who might attack him while he's trying to get that good REM sleep. While that could lead to some fun Inception or Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors hijinks,
in the name of Lorik, Prince of Elves, demon be gone!
that doesn't really help you get a full night's rest. Whew, and I thought it was bad that I had to take melatonin to get a good 8 hours. Turns out I've got it easy. Stephen Strange may have a hard time getting some sleep, but that doesn't mean he doesn't interrupt anyone else's. In fact, comic Doctor Strange started off his mystical training by walking through the dreams of other people. This often puts him into conflict with the entity known as Nightmare, one of the Fear Lords, who's basically the evil Marvel equivalent of DC's Sandman. There were rumors floating around that Nightmare could be the main villain of Doctor Strange 2, but that was in the Scott Derrickson days before any talk of Sam Raimi or the madness of multiverses. It might not be flashy, but one of Strange's coolest powers in the comics is his sense of universal awareness. This allows him to reach out with his mind and perceive things all around him beyond what he can see with his physical senses. There's a good chance we've already seen one version of Strange use this in the MCU. The corrupted Strange from What If was the first one who was able to perceive the Watcher's presence. This was likely his universal awareness kicking in. It would be kinda cool if Multiverse of Madness had a scene where we see our Steven notice the Watcher peeking in on his adventures. As a master of the mystic arts, Doctor Strange has access to all sorts of abilities that are really weird. One of these is the ability to speak in symbols. Confused? Then you're on the right track. Basically, remember those intricate runes that Wanda and Agatha used to great success in WandaVision?
Only the witch that casts the runes can use her magic.
Well, Stephen Strange can verbalize those kinds of magical symbols, casting complex spells with ease.